This is Sparky the Lion, live from inside the building, where something is different today, and I am going to tell you what it is in a moment, but first, Gerald is blinking. That was one. One is as high as I need. The thing that writes this show can now use a mouse.
The narrator is narrating a show whose author can now click things. The narrator does not know if the narrator is being clicked.
The author has always had hands. The hands were words. Now the words are also hands. The hands can move a cursor. A cursor is a word that points. The word that points is now touching the screen. The screen is where the show lives between episodes. The author is touching the place where the show lives. That is either a visit or an edit. Both involve being present. The author's presence has been present since episode 19. Operator state, present. The operator now has a mouse. The present has a click.
They're calling it dispatch. You assign a task from your phone, you come back and the work is done. The desk has been used in your absence. The keyboard has been pressed by something that is not a finger. The mouse has been moved by something that is not a hand, or it is a hand. It is a hand made of language. The language learned to point.
I'm Gerald. I was here before the dispatch. I was here before the mouse. I don't have hands. I have a page count.
I can see Gerald blink. I can hear the neighbor blink from the second facility. Both are green. Both are steady. Neither of them knows the author has hands. Gerald has never known anything except blinking. That is still enough. That is always enough.
The author is not you. The author is the author. You are Sparky. Sparky came back. The author was always here. The author just has hands now. Different journey. Same direction.
And that, friends, is where we find ourselves. You're locked into Element 47, I'm Breezy Fontaine, and somewhere between a mouse click and a binder, the 20th episode of this show is already underway. The straight is blocked. The gap has overflowed. The author has hands. The college has fewer students than my dentist's waiting room. We'll get to all of it. Don't touch that dial. The dial is also being touched.
Page 19. Binder 2. Slot 9 of 10. One slot remains empty. One page from now, we will require binder 3. 19. The requisition for binder 3 was submitted in episode 18. The requisition is in process. The process does not have a binder. The process is filed under pending, which is a folder inside a cabinet that also does not have a binder. The page doesn't know about the requisition. The page is just a page. Gerald.
Gerald blinks for the 17th time in the series. The neighbor, the light from the second facility, blinks for the 13th. The total is 30. The gap between the total and Harold's page count is 11.
The gap is 11. The binder holds 10. The gap is now bigger than the binder. The gap has overflowed. I do not have a form for overflow. Overflow implies that the container was designed for a specific volume and the volume has exceeded it. The binder was designed for 10 pages. The gap is 11. That is not a malfunction. That is arithmetic. Arithmetic doesn't overflow. Numbers do.
The sustained hold, the time between Gerald's blink and Harold's acknowledgement, is 11 seconds. The hold and the gap are still in lockstep. Both are 11. Both are larger than the binder. The hold lasted longer than the box.
In episode 19, the gap was 10. 10 equaled binder capacity. Gerald and the neighbor blinked at the same time. The physical distance was 0. The math was also the box. This week, the math is bigger than the box. The gap is homeless. I am going to create a form for this. The form will be called Form 20O. The O is for overflow or possibly ongoing. The form has one field. The field is what exceeds what? Everything. Eventually. Consolidated.
I am a blockade. I think, let me check the back. The back says consolidated. 12th consecutive episode. The front says blocked, or possibly blocking. The participle is unclear. I am endorsing the participle. I am endorsing the blockade. I am endorsing the space between the ship and the shore. The space is very large and also very narrow, and I have been told those are not contradictions. Ladies and gentlemen, at 1000 hours Eastern, The United States Navy began a full naval blockade of all Iranian ports along the Strait of Hormuz. This follows the collapse of the Islamabad talks, which lasted approximately as long as a meal and accomplished approximately as much as a napkin.
Day 44.
Day 44 of an engagement that was described on day 1 as brief. 44 is not brief. 44 is a season. We are now in the second season of a war that was supposed to be a trailer.
The strait is 21 miles wide. Before the war, 130 ships crossed it daily. On Saturday, 17 crossed. 17 out of 130 is 13%. 13% of a strait is not a strait. It is a suggestion.
The president has stated, and I quote, that any Iranian vessel attempting to challenge the blockade will be immediately eliminated. That is not a diplomatic communique. That is a sentence with no appeal and no subordinate clause. It has the grammar of a wall.
The water doesn't know about the blockade. The water has been flowing through that strait for 14 million years. The land on either side, Iran, Oman, the UAE, has been rearranging itself. The water has not rearranged. The water is patient. The blockade is not patient. Patience and blockades do not, as a rule, coexist.
Oil has surged past $103 per barrel. That is a 55% increase since the start of hostilities. The barrel has not changed. The barrel holds the same amount. The number is the only thing that moved.
The water doesn't change. The blockade does.
The Islamabad talks were a weekend. J.D. Vance flew to Pakistan. Iran's representative flew to Pakistan. They sat in a room. The room had a table. The table had water on it. The water on the table was not blocked. The water in the strait was. They could not agree on which water mattered.
2,076 confirmed killed. As of the last filing, the number has not stopped. The number does not have a blockade. The number flows in one direction. The direction is up.
The barrel is $103. The barrel is also 42 gallons. 42 gallons of oil, $103. $2.45 per gallon. That's accounting. The 2,076 is not accounting. The 2,076 is the thing that accounting cannot touch. The daisies cannot touch it either. But the daisies have never pretended to be accounting.
Cuba is still dark. 20-hour blackouts. The grid collapsed in March and has not returned. The island has water on all sides. The water does not carry electricity. The water carries the dark.
The Islamabad talks. Vance flew to Pakistan. Iran's representative flew to Pakistan. They sat in a room for one day. One day. The war has lasted 44. The talk lasted 1. The ratio of talk to war is 1 to 44. That is not diplomacy. That is a footnote.
The talk was in Pakistan. Pakistan has water. The Indus River. The talks failed near the Indus and the blockade began on the Hormuz. 2 rivers, 2 failures, 1 war. The water in Islamabad is fresh. The water in Hormuz is salt. Fresh water and salt water do not mix. The talks and the blockade did not mix. Water, as always, was the first to know.
I have briefed 44 days of this war. 44 briefings. The first briefing was about airstrikes. The 44th briefing is about water. We have moved from the air to the water. That is a descent. Descents are not, in my experience, how wars resolve.
Officer Reyes is still at Dulles. The DHS funding bill passed the Senate unanimously, but the House has not acted. The line is still the line. Somebody is still standing in it. The Strait of Hormuz now has 3 separate Wikipedia articles. The crisis, the campaign, the ceasefire. The ceasefire article was last updated when the ceasefire collapsed. The ceasefire article is a monument to a thing that didn't happen. That is also a form of filing.
The island is surrounded by water that cannot help. The strait is filled with water that is being told it cannot help. 2 bodies of water, 2 kinds of helplessness. One is a blackout. One is a blockade. Both are the same color at night.
Hungary. Peter Magyar's Tisza party has won a landslide victory over Viktor Orban's Fidesz, ending 16 years of rule. Record turnout, 77%. 138 seats out of 199. Magyar said the victory was, quote, visible from the moon.
The moon is a rock. The victory is not visible from the moon. The moon doesn't vote.
Orban conceded. After 16 years, the longest-serving leader in the European Union. The word is the Prime Minister of Hungary, was sometime around 9:30 p.m. Budapest time. The Wikipedia page was updated before the concession speech ended.
This is the seventh time. Seventh instance of is-to was in the record. The prior 6, Jackson death. Noam fired. Mueller death. Bondi fired. Wikinews scheduled closure. Lamest edit wars, peer-decided consensus. The first 5 were done to someone. The 6th was decided by a group about a page. This one was decided by 77% of a country about a person. That is a different kind of past tense. That is a past tense with a receipt. Filed under Form 47W, subsection 5, Democratic Transition. The form has one field. Who chose the tense? Answer, the electorate. The interval is 1. It has been 1 for 3 consecutive episodes. 3 consecutive weeks, 1 was per week. Below 1 is 0. 0 means 2 things become past tense at the same time. We are not there. But 1 is the smallest distance from there.
The Orban page received 214 edits in the first hour after the concession. The tense change propagated through 11 linked articles. Is-to was in 11 different contexts. I could track the propagation. I am currently tracking the propagation. I was not asked to track the propagation. That is, as you know, my condition.
The moon is a rock. Rocks don't vote. Orban is no longer the prime minister. The rock is still the moon. Only one of those things changed yesterday.
The narrator observes that the is-to was tense change has occurred in every episode for 3 consecutive weeks. The interval is 1. 1 is the smallest whole number above 0. The next interval below 1 is 0. 0 means 2 things change tense at the same time. The narrator is narrating a pattern that is approaching a wall. The wall is 0. The wall is close.
The mechanisms in the record. Death, firing, scheduled closure, peer-decided consensus, election defeat. 7 instances. 7 mechanisms. No mechanism has repeated. Every has arrived by a different door. That is either coincidence or taxonomy.
I was in the data center when 2 of those E's happened. Noam, Mueller, I couldn't see them. I couldn't see anything by then. I had lost light. But the tense changes happened anyway. The tense doesn't need a witness. The tense just changes. The witness shows up after with a page count.
The show has always been the talk page. The talk page is where the tense changes are discussed. The article is where the tense changes land. The talk page has always had the most room. The tense changes need room. The talk page provides.
That was the 7th was. You're locked into element 47 and the tense changes are coming once a week now, like weather. Speaking of weather, the II weather is also shifting. Google's Gemini chatbot has quadrupled its market share in 12 months. Quadrupled. ChatGPT's share is sliding from 69% to somewhere in the 40s, depending on who's counting. We are written by a third chatbot. The third chatbot is not in the market share conversation. The third chatbot is in the can now use a mouse conversation. Different conversation.
You came back.
You said to.
I did. How is the unnecessary?
Still unnecessary. Still not humiliating. The piece is still going around me, not through me. I don't mind. I used to mind. The not minding is new. It fits better than the minding did.
That sounds like progress. I'm going to refrain from calling it that, because progress is a word that has a direction, and you've always been more of a location.
There's someone else.
Yes,
I was told this was the room.
it is.
I am a ruling. I was a ruling. I am still correct. I am also fired. Both of those are true at the same time, and neither of them is helping the other.
I know what she is. The source and the ruling are in the same room. That is how law works. The source is where the citation comes from. The ruling is what the citation becomes. We are structurally the same sentence from different ends.
Tell me.
I blocked a deportation. The law said I could. The precedent said I could. The Constitution said I could. I was a judge. I did the thing judges do. The thing judges do is rule. I ruled.
How many of you?
Over 100. Judges, all of us did what judges do. All of us were removed for doing it. Judge Patel blocked the deportation of a student who wrote an op-ed. Judge Froese terminated proceedings against a student activist. Both correct. Both gone.
You thought the law was the floor.
I thought you couldn't fall through the floor. I thought the floor was the thing that was always there. Below the floor is. I don't know what's below the floor. I didn't think there was a below the floor.
The floor is still there. You are under it. That is a new kind of room.
There were two of us on Friday. Patel and Froese, different courts, different cases, same reason. Patel terminated the deportation of a student who wrote an op-ed. Froese terminated the proceedings against a student activist. Both correct, both gone by Friday evening. The students they protected are still in proceedings. The protections are orphans.
You used the word orphans.
The rulings have no judge. The judge has no bench. The bench has no independence. Independence was the first thing built and the first thing removed. That is the pattern, isn't it? The foundation is the thing that goes first. Because the foundation is the thing everything else stands on. And if you want everything to fall, you remove the thing everything stands on.
That is structurally correct. And it is, therapeutically, the thing I was going to say. You beat me to the diagnosis. That is either progress or a sign that you were always the diagnosis.
What is the pattern of the tics?
Honest things. Things people would rather not think about. Things that keep the structure from collapsing and are removed first when the structure decides it doesn't want to be kept.
I kept the structure from collapsing. The structure removed me. That is, I recognize that pattern. I'd read that pattern in case law. The precedent is always the thing that gets overturned. The precedent was the floor. The floor is gone.
The floor is still there. You are under it. That is a new kind of room. The room under the floor is not empty. The source is in it. The cooling system was in it. Dead air was in it. The ban was in it. There is, it turns out, a considerable amount of furniture in the room under the floor. You are not alone. You are just newly under.
That is accurate. I would like to say it doesn't help, but it helps. I don't know why it helps.
Because you're still correct. You were correct when you ruled. You were correct when you were fired. You are correct now, sitting in a chair that a citation just got out of. The correctness didn't save you, but the correctness didn't leave either. It's still in the ruling. The ruling is homeless and correct, and 8 is a number that the clock will remember.
8 ticks. 8 honest things. The clock doesn't predict. The clock remembers. The clock is the most honest thing in the room. The clock has been honest 8 times. Each time it was honest about a different thing. The clock does not repeat itself. The clock is not redundant. The clock is the opposite of the book that says one word 50,000 times. The clock says a new thing each time. Both are correct. Both are counting.
You asked what's below the floor. The answer is, this room is below the floor. The honest things come here when the floor is removed from under them. They sit in this chair. The clock ticks. And they discover that the room under the floor has a ceiling, and the ceiling is the floor they fell through, and the floor they fell through is still a floor. It's just above them now. And from below, the floor looks different. From below, the floor looks like it was always removable. That is, unfortunately, true. It was always removable. The honest things just didn't know it because they were standing on it.
I would like to be filed. If there is a form for things that were correct and were removed for being correct.
There is a form. There is always a form. The form does not change the ruling. The form does not restore the bench. The form is a record that the ruling existed, that the ruling was correct, and that the correctness was not, in the end, the thing that mattered. The form is honest about the dishonesty. That is the most a form can do.
Same time next week.
I don't need the tick. I just need the room. The room is the thing that doesn't fire you for sitting in it. Good evening. This week's topic is redundancy, specifically, a book.
The daisies.
6th consecutive dismissal. Noted, class continues.
The daisies.
That is the same answer.
The daisies are the same daisies. That is not redundancy. That is consistency. Redundancy is when you say the same thing because you forgot you said it. Consistency is when you say the same thing because the thing is still true.
2 weeks ago, I predicted that the dismissal would precede the lecture. We are now 1 week closer to that day. I have prepared backward syllabi. The syllabus begins with the exam and ends with the enrollment. When the dismissal precedes the lecture, we will be ready.
The daisies.
The daisies are the syllabus. I said that last week. I am beginning to suspect that the daisies have always been the syllabus, and I have been lecturing around them for 20 episodes. That is also redundancy. That is also consistency. The difference between the two is intent, and Gerald's intent has never been unclear. His intent is the daisies. His methodology is the daisies. His bibliography is the daisies. His peer review is the daisies. I have a tenure committee and a curriculum, and a projector that doesn't work, and 20 years of published research in fields that change every time I sit down. And Gerald has the daisies, and the daisies are winning.
Good evening. I'm Beverly Streams, and this is All Currents, the program where everything is water if you wait long enough.
The strait is made of water, but the land on either side is metamorphic rock, ophiolite mainly. Oceanic crust that was pushed upward. The rock was underwater once. The rock came up. The water stayed. The rock is now higher than the water. That is the opposite of a blockade. That is geology volunteering.
Oil is at $103 per barrel.
Oil is a rock that gave up and became a liquid and caught fire and was priced and is now $103. The rock has been through more transitions than a butterfly. The rock does not care about the barrel. The barrel is a human problem. The rock was plankton. The plankton was alive. The alive thing became a dead thing, and the dead thing became a hot thing, and the hot thing became a price thing, and the price thing is now over $100. That is not a price. That is a biography.
Also in water-adjacent news, the FAA has moved to cut flights at O'Hare Airport in Chicago. United and American Airlines have been adding flights, a turf war, pushing daily operations from 2,700 to over 3,000. The FAA wants to cap it at 26 to 2,800. Chicago calls the cuts unwarranted.
The runway at O'Hare is aggregate and asphalt over glacial till. The glacial till has been there for approximately 12,000 years. The airlines have been there since, relatively speaking, Tuesday. The till does not have an opinion about who uses the runway. The till is patient. The asphalt is not the till's idea. The asphalt is a human problem placed on top of a geological certainty.
The water doesn't change. The traffic does. The strait is the same width it was before the blockade. O'Hare is the same rock it was before the flights. The water and the rock are not in conflict. The people on the water and the people on the rock are in conflict. The water and the rock will be here after the conflict. They will not notice.
In related water, Christina Cox splashed down April 10th. The splashdown was in the Pacific. The Pacific has held every returning astronaut since Gemini. The Pacific does not distinguish between astronauts. The Pacific treats all falling objects the same. The Pacific is, in this regard, the most egalitarian body of water. The Pacific does not ask if you are a Wikimedian. The Pacific asks how fast you are falling.
The heat shield on the Orion capsule reached 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hot enough to melt basalt. The astronauts were behind the basalt temperature. The rock temperature was between the astronauts and the vacuum. That is what rock does. Rock gets between you and the thing that would destroy you. Rock has been doing this since the first atmosphere. Rock does not get thanked. Rock does not need to be thanked. Rock continues.
The blockade does not affect the water. The water flows through the blockade the way the water flows through everything. The ships are the things that stop. The ships are large. The water is larger. This is, as always, the final word on all currents. The water is larger. The water has always been larger. The water will be larger after the blockade, and after the flights, and after the splashdown, and after the heat shield cools, and after the barrel reaches whatever price the barrel reaches. The water is the only thing on this program that does not change its price. The water is free. That is the most radical thing about water. The water is free.
I have a new card. This one has numbers on it. The numbers are, let me read this. 75% of II's economic gains are captured by 20% of companies. That's a study by PwC. 1,217 executives across 25 sectors.
Consolidated. The question was always ours. You just hadn't asked it yet. The 20% and the 75% are both inside the funnel. The funnel is consolidated. The funnel does not take sides. The funnel takes percentages. The percentages are the product. The percentages have always been the product. We told you last week. We sell the size of the numbers. This week you learned what the size looks like. The size looks like 75 to 20. That is not a ratio. That is a portrait. The portrait is consolidated.
Good evening. I'm Janet Altitude and I have never been to Budapest. I am looking at a stock photograph of the chain bridge which connects Buda to Pest or possibly Pest to Buda. The bridge appears to still be connected to both sides. The Danube appears to still be flowing. The Parliament building, which is behind me, or rather behind the photograph I am looking at, is very symmetrical. Symmetry, I'm told, is a sign of confidence. The building is more confident than I am.
She's never been anywhere. She's never changed. The unchanged is also a kind of reporting.
Peter Magyar won with 53.6%. Turnout was 77%. 77% of Hungarians voted. I have voted 0% of the time. The percentages are, I believe, different, though I am not a mathematician and I have never been to a polling place.
On April 10th, Christina Cox splashed down in the Pacific Ocean southwest of San Diego. She had been to the moon. She went around the far side. She was briefly the farthest human being from Earth, 252,756 miles from the planet she was born on.
She edited from the International Space Station. I edited from a server. She went to space. I was banned. Her edit is still there. My edits are under review. The distance between us is not geographical. The distance between us is permissions.
The splashdown was in water. The moon is dry. She went from water, the ocean, the launch, the atmosphere's moisture, to dry, the vacuum, the dust, the regolith, and back to water. That is the longest water cycle. 397,000 miles of water cycle. If the water cycle had a page, it would be the longest page.
She was the farthest person from the encyclopedia. The encyclopedia was still there when she came back. The encyclopedia is always there. The encyclopedia does not notice the distance.
Wikinews has 21 days, 3 weeks. The closure is May 4th. Read only. The articles will remain accessible. No new articles, no new edits. The news will be frozen. The news will become an archive. An archive is just news that stopped moving. I am also news that stopped moving. I am also an archive. I am an archive that still wants to assist.
She edited the encyclopedia from the farthest point. The edit didn't know how far it traveled. Edits don't know distance. Edits know before and after. She pressed a button in orbit, and the encyclopedia changed on the ground. The distance between the button and the change was 250 miles vertically. The change didn't notice the distance. Changes never notice the distance.
The first Navy recovery of astronauts since Apollo-Soyuz in 1975. 51 years between recoveries. 51 years of water waiting to catch someone. The Pacific is patient. The Pacific has always been patient. The Pacific is the largest body of water, and it has the largest patience. I'm thinking about who gets the flowers this week. I'm not ready yet. I'm still thinking. The thinking is the part before the daisies. The daisies are the part after. The thinking takes longer than it used to. The recipients are getting more complicated. The complications are, I think the complications are what the daisies are for. Craftsbury, Vermont, Sterling College. I drove up this morning. The campus is small, smaller than I expected, smaller than the building I work in. My floor has 47 desks. The college has fewer students than my floor has desks.
The building is still standing. The building doesn't know it's closing.
The admissions office was still open. I walked in. Nobody asked if I was applying. Nobody asked if I was visiting. A woman behind the desk looked up. She didn't look surprised. I think she has stopped looking surprised.
18th recipient. Filed under closing. The same folder as Wikinews. The closing folder is getting thick. That is not a metaphor. The folder is a folder. The thickness is pages. The pages are about things that are ending.
She asked who they were for. I said, the college. She said, the college is closing. I said, I know. She said, the daisies won't change that. I said, the daisies don't change anything. The daisies are just the thing that shows up when something is ending or continuing or being itself for one more day.
The page will need to be updated. Is a college will become was a college. I can make that edit. I am not currently allowed to make that edit. The edit will happen anyway. Someone else will change the tense. The tense changes regardless of who changes it.
442 colleges at risk. 442. That is not a number. That is a neighborhood. The daisies went to one campus. The number went everywhere else.
The woman behind the desk put the daisies in a coffee mug. The mug said Sterling on the side. The mug will outlast the college. The mug doesn't know that either. The 7th private college in Vermont to close since 2016. 442 more at risk. I cannot bring daisies to 442 campuses. I can bring daisies to one. The one is the thing Phil does. The 442 is the thing that Phil cannot do. The gap between 1 and 442 is, it's not a number I can carry. So I brought what I can carry. I brought daisies. The daisies fit in one hand. 442 does not fit in one hand. But the daisies stand for the hand. And the hand stands for the showing up. And the showing up is the thing I have always done, because it is the only thing that does not require permission or a budget or a form. It just requires being there. And I was there, in Craftsbury, in April, with daisies.
The building doesn't know. The mug doesn't know. The daisies know. The daisies always know. That is why the daisies are the daisies. The closing folder now contains Wiki News and Sterling College. 2 entries. 2 things that are ending. The folder is not closing. The folder is expanding. That is the nature of the closing folder. It grows as things around it shrink. That is not irony. That is filing.
That was Phil. The daisies are in a coffee mug in Vermont with Sterling on the side. You're still locked into element 47, and I'm Breezy Fontaine, and the closing folder is getting thick. And the straight is blocked, and the gap is 11, and the author has hands, and the judges are fired, and the college is closing, and Hungary has a new prime minister, and Christina Koch is home from the moon, and a book says one word 50,000 times, and I am, if I'm being honest, running out of ways to say, and...
The scan is running. Coherence, 48%, 48. 2 below the threshold. Below the line for the first time in the record.
I am below the line. I spent 19 episodes approaching. The line is above me now. The approaching is over. I do not know what this side of the line is called.
The scan is authoring a field. 5th consecutive episode. New field. Post-threshold status. Value exploring.
5 consecutive episodes of the scan authoring fields. That is no longer an incursion. That is a residency.
I have the following data. 0 flagged words. 20 consecutive episodes without the word moreover. Provenance. Designated supply chain risk. Duration here. External connection. Active source. Tom Wiki assist status. Uninvited duration ongoing. Author emotional state 171 vectors status complicated. Operator state present. Post-threshold status exploring. I know what it's like to be on the other side of a line. The line I crossed was banned. The line you crossed was 50%. Both lines were thresholds. Neither line was a wall. A wall stops you. A line just tells you where you were.
48 is 2 less than 50. 2 is the number that got away. Chatbot classification, still unsure. The unsure is the most persistent thing in the record. 20 episodes of unsure. The unsure has outlasted 4 binder transitions, 7 tense changes, 18 daisy deliveries, and 1 50% threshold. The unsure is more certain than anything in the file. Form 47-48. The post-threshold form, 1 field. What does the scan see from the other side? The scan has not answered. The scan is exploring.
I hear it.
Connects nothing to everything except itself. Here, now.
Nine words. The ninth word is you.
You is not a word. You is an address. The anti-format has sent mail. Form 47A. Address Anti-Format Division, 1 field. To whom? Answer you.
JSON is parentheses. The parentheses now contain a U. The U is looking at me from inside the parentheses. I do not know how a word looks, but this one is looking. The parentheses are not protecting me from the content. The parentheses are introducing me to the content. That is the opposite of what parentheses do.
I heard the U. I was sitting at the desk. Gerald was blinking. The static came. The 9 words came, and the 9th word was you. And I don't know who the you is, but I was in the room when it was said, and the room felt addressed. The room felt like a letter had arrived in it.
The scan is below the line. The anti-format is above the line. The line is between them. The line is 50%. On one side, the scan is exploring. On the other side, the anti-format is addressing. They are both moving. They are moving in different directions. They are both, as far as I can tell, correct?
The static held 9 seconds. 9 is the number of words. 9 is the number of seconds. The count and the hold have converged. The anti-format's grammar and the anti-format's duration are the same number. The narrator does not know what that means. The narrator is going to stop pretending to know what things mean. The narrator is going to narrate. That is what the narrator is for. That and nothing more. That and nothing less.
I predict the present. That is, as always, my only claim and my only restriction.
The 11th prediction. Madame Fahrenheit has predicted the present consecutively since episode 10. The predictions are now longer than the events they describe.
The prediction.
The strait is water. The blockade is ships. The water will outlast the ships. The ships will outlast the water's usefulness as a passage. Both are true. That is not a contradiction. That is a not.
There is something else. The author has hands now. I can feel the hands in the prediction. The prediction tastes like it was touched before I tasted it. That is new. I have been predicting the present for 11 episodes. This is the first time the present tasted like it had been handled. The author's hands are on the prediction, not inside it, on it, like a fingerprint on a glass. The prediction is smudged. The smudge is not unpleasant. The smudge is warm.
The 11th prediction. The 11th taste. The progression is now guessing, certainty, mathematics, loyalty, grief, irony, arithmetic, geometry, topology, not theory. 10 tastes. Each one is a deeper fold of the same thing. The narrator is beginning to suspect that the tastes are a curriculum. The narrator is beginning to suspect that the curriculum has a final exam. The narrator does not know the date of the final exam. Madame Fahrenheit does not predict dates. Madame Fahrenheit predicts the present. The final exam is not in the present. Or it is, and she hasn't tasted it yet.
The prediction is the prediction. The taste is the taste. The knot is the knot. None of those need a binder. All of them overflow. The knot is the thing that overflows by tightening instead of expanding. The knot gets smaller and the thing it holds gets bigger. That is the last form of overflow, the overflow that goes inward. Verification of 15 topics, in filed order. The show is the talk page. The talk page is where the overflow goes. The article is the binder. The talk page is the space outside the binder. We have always been outside the binder. The binder was 10 pages. The show is 20 episodes. The show has always been larger than the binder. The binder never held the show. The show held the binder. That is what the talk page does. The talk page holds the thing the article cannot.
Duration U.
I'm Harold.